Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Jessel Podcast. I'm Ernie Rapoza. I'm here with Ali Glaser and Karen Amatangelo-Block. Did I pronounce that right, Karen?
You did.
All right. Awesome. I practiced all night. Um, so, Ali is an executive performance coach and leadership development specialist focused on one-on-one coaching and team training. And we talked a little bit about where she's from. Central New Jersey means like across the river from New York. So she's really close to New York, but can't say she's from New York. She's from New Jersey. So I'm glad we got that sorted, Ali. Karen is a senior leader who has worked in talent management and recruiting for over 20 years and currently is an HR executive at Marriott International and also a career coach who helps clients amplify their authentic voice in their life and work. Karen's based in Bethesda, Maryland. Ali, Karen, welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome. Thanks for having us. And I want to just following on Ali's note, Bethesda, Maryland, but right by Washington, D.C.
just like a block away from Washington,
D.C. Right. For those who don't know where Bethesda is, there you go.
Awesome. And I'm clearly not located in this moment in Central New Jersey.
But they don't have palm trees in Central Jersey.
Palm trees in the background, right?
You're joining us from poolside down in Florida somewhere, right?
Yeah. Forgive my informality this morning. I'm on a vacation, but I love Jessel so much that I had to be here.
Thanks for taking a break from the running and the swimming and all the things that you've got going on down there. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and the umbrella drinks.
So excited to have you both here. One of a topic we tend to chat about amongst ourselves is just books and podcasts that we're reading and listening to. And we thought, wouldn't that be fun to just share with the Jessel audience? And for the most part, the people we are out here serving are folks who are in transition or looking for work or in the process of just trying to figure out their next thing. So I think some of the topics we've discussed are adjacent or aligned to that. I know, Karen, you had some specific ones that you wanted to share. So why don't you kick us off and we'll go from there and see what we come up with here.
Yeah. Thanks, Ernie. You and I were chatting, and I love reading, listening, and hearing what other people are reading and listening to. I know, I don't know if you all follow Obama on Instagram. He always comes out with his book of lists and movies and music, and so ours may not be as paid attention to as his, but let's see what we come up
with.
I tend to read and listen to a mix of like that personal and then that sort of things that sort of apply in my life and work. And so one book I got really caught up with at I think at the end of last year, and I think is by Martha Beck. It's called The Way of Integrity. Have either of you heard of this one?
The Way of Integrity.
Yeah. So Martha Beck I think she's primarily a columnist. She was in, I think she wrote a column in Oprah magazine. She sort of has that Nora Ephron sort of style, but she is has her own journey and talks a lot about that. And she's written a couple of books, but The Way of Integrity, I think, might relate to a lot of people in sort of this place of looking for some transition, because it's about meaning and purpose, which, and there's a lot out there right now. But in particular, it's sort of a workbook style. Like it has exercises and chapters and leads you to, but it's based on Dante's Inferno. So, which, not that I want you all to go back to high school or college when we read that the first time, but Dante's Inferno and his journey. And it's sort of, she says, this is your own journey to integrity. And so it's sort of like this place that, you enter the dark wood and where you are right now. And that's a lot about, how our culture really sells us what success is and material things and this place, right? And so it's very relatable. You're like, oh yeah, like I'm following that path. Especially like the example, holiday time, you see the pictures of cars with bows on them, etc. Right? Like that's, I need to chase that.
Don't you all get new cars for your spouses every Christmas
with a gigantic red bow? Like, I mean, it's right, there, surprise. So right, that whole that place, right? You sort of are like, or you're even at work and you're like, someone else is getting a promotion. Like, I don't even want that promotion. No, I need to get that promotion, right? It's just this place where it's so it's in our subconscious because that's our culture sort of sells it to us. So that's where she sort of starts from. And then how do you get to the place of more meaning and purpose and figuring out what's right for you? And I think what I liked about the book, and so I mean, I think there's a lot about there. She talks about how to move away from that in the shift. But one of the things I liked in particular was this place of how to know what is true for you. And I think for those of us who are coaches, and we talk about sometimes we're talking to a client and we're saying, well, you need to quiet your inner critic or that inner judge. And all of us, particularly if you're looking for a new job or you're in a place of transition, you have that voice of, I can't do that, or I've got to cover up for something, or that's going to be a compromise, or am I settling? How do you quiet that and just be like, what's true, right? And sometimes we'll say that to a client, like, think about your inner leader. Or they're like, I don't know. I don't know what your leader is. And so I love that she, to me, makes it very real. And she talks about this, it's an involuntary place. Like when you're in alignment, it's involuntary. Your body relaxes, you're calm. You hear somebody saying something, you're like, yeah, that's me.
You're present.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And so so she describes it, while the book has this sort of spiritual journey, it has these relatable like exercises that make you understand, oh, that's when, you hear a song that takes you to that place. That's when I'm in alignment. That's when I'm like, yes, that's me. So to what all of these things are about, like, when do you know, how do you realize that's right for me? I'm not settling. That feels good. And that is true, right? That's your true self. That's where you find purpose. That's where you find meaning, as opposed to, the car commercial, the other person's promotion, right? That doesn't feel true. It feels like you're chasing. And so the whole journey is getting off this Mount Delectable. So to me, I thought that part resonated.
Yeah. So like less external validation, external reward, and more kind of internal, like self-actualization, right? What really sparks joy, being alive for you. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how difficult that must be for job seekers, right? To find it's job searching when it's not going your way, or it's taking a lot longer than you had anticipated. The external validation is pretty much all that it's about, right? It can be soul crushing when you're getting invalidated day after day by not having the phone call come in, or getting the rejection, or just not hearing altogether.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
And this comes up so often when we're out talking to people, because Jussel came into being to just help people find jobs faster, easier, better. And we find ourselves talking increasingly about the job that's right for you versus getting the next job. And just, I've learned myself, just doing that self-analysis before you see that shiny job title. Oh, that looks like that might be interesting, the job and the money. But doing that validation of, is this right for me? Is this gonna push all the buttons that I want to be happy? And that's some people just are better at that. Some people need a nudge to take a step back and be thoughtful about it.
Yeah, there's the practical aspect of it, for sure, which is, it's not the ideal job. It's not the job that is in alignment, as Karen was talking about, with what's most important to me, but it's going to pay my mortgage next month. So there's that. But then there's when there's not that level of, I hate to say the word desperation, because I just hate people feeling that in any regard, but when people are really feeling that around the next, or when they're not feeling that, and they're just looking for the next new job. And
sense of urgency.
I've had many conversations, and on this podcast as well, about what job do we want because it sounds great, versus what job do we want to do because we want to do the job. And the question that I've always come back to is, if you couldn't put it on social media, and the only people who were going to know about it are your closest circle of friends and your partner or whoever you live with, everyone else just knows you go to work every day. Would you take that opportunity? And that's really a question that gets to the heart of what do I really want, and what's gonna matter most to me.
Yep. Yep.
I
Agreed.
totally agree. I think building on that, particularly if it's somebody who is super, super frustrated and is in a toxic job and wants to make a move, or, involuntarily has been in a position where they're looking for a new job. So you do feel like I have to pay the bills. So those are real concerns, but you start chasing things that you don't want to do, or you're like, I can do that. I can do that. And like, even right, your foot, your face. So I had a client one time that was talking to me, and then it doesn't pay off, right? Because the recruiter and the business is like, that person doesn't want to come here. That person has worked in this job 5 years ago. Why would they want to come back to this? And so then they get rejected, right? And so then it's like, and then the candidate comes back and says, even they don't want me.
Right.
Even that person, even that recruiter ghosted me. So this is that way to just say, I'm off that, I'm not on Mount Delectable. Like, I'm not chasing that. I'm not, in that place. So, and to Ernie's point, bringing that awareness forward, keeping it present, and doing that work ahead of time. So it's really hard if you've got practical concerns to get a new job, to do that time, to do that little tour of duty for yourself. Like, I am going to look at jobs that fit in this box, that these are the things that are really important to me. These are the things where I will really both contribute because I know, and be engaged because it's a learning, right? But if it's not those things, like, it's not just, it's not a match, but you're right. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that then you don't get the call and then you get frustrated, etc. So sort of doing some of that work. So I enjoyed this book. It's a quick read. I think there's a lot out there like that.
Cool. Yeah, I'm reading one right now that's in a similar vein. It's called 4,000 Weeks, the Time Management for Mortals, and it's by Oliver Berkman.
Yeah.
And have either of you read it?
No.
I've read snippets of it.
Well, and you have Get Abstract, which I love, right? Because you can skim books and get the idea. Some of these books, they have their idea and then they have filler in the back, right? I'm not saying this is one of those books, but you're like, okay, I get it, right? And you might not need to read the whole thing. Where this book, I'm about 2/3 of the way through, and the gist of this one is that on the average human lifespan, we've got about 4,000 weeks of being here. So it puts that in perspective, because we tend to be in denial that our time here is limited, right? So and I don't know how much of this is an American perspective. Apologies, I've got a neighbor moving in next door. I've got some noise. Where we think we have all the time in the world to get certain things done. Right. And there can be this mindset of, you talked a little bit about that external factor, that external validation. I'll be happy when, right? I'll be happy when I get that new job. I'll be happy when I have this much money in the bank. I'll be happy when I have that house I've always dreamed of, versus choosing to be in the moment, present, happy with where you are. And there's a Sheryl Crow song, be happy with what you've it's not what you want, it's being happy with what you've got, right? So we should just take a pause and go listen to Sheryl Crow, Soak Up the Sun.
You can
musical break.
type it into the background.
right.
We'll put a link.
Edit that.
So it also talks a little bit about that whole materialism, capitalism thing where once you've caught up with the Joneses, you find a new set of Joneses. Right. And you're constantly on this treadmill of needing to achieve and achieve and achieve, versus like you're not going to be, in most cases, unless you're Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, like, you're not going to be the richest person in the cemetery, right? So in some cases it was a little sobering to be like, oh man, right, I'm not going to live forever, like, unless they have a robot body to put me in, maybe, fingers crossed, right? So it was a good read, and we may do another podcast on it just to dig into it a little bit more, because we had a great campfire conversation about this particular book a few months ago. So that's one that I'd recommend for folks that are wanted to think a little bit more around. I feel like there's a relationship with the one you just talked about, Karen, where being in the moment, thinking about what's right for you, and being more deliberate about, hey, I'm pretty happy, comfortable with where I am right now, and if I'm not, what can I realistically do to get myself into that place where enough is enough? Right?
Yeah.
There's this concept of a friend of mine talks about just enoughness, right? Enoughness. It was a word I hadn't really heard before. And we can apply that to so many different things in our lives, like enoughness around the material stuff, enoughness around the relationships, the job. And I'm currently reading Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And one of the things, I just started it, so I could talk a little bit about it, but one of the things that jumped out at me when I was reading it yesterday was 80% of people say they're unhappy in their jobs. 80%. Wow. And 20% can say, I love my job. And I just think that that's an astounding, and we have to ask ourselves, like, where do we fall in that? And, I do some career panels annually for a local university. And one of the things that I start out when I introduce myself is, I have 3 jobs and I love all 3 of them. And I realized yesterday I'm in the 20% of people who can really say that, and not about just one job. But I have a couple of jobs, and I really genuinely feel that way. And I think about, is that the concept of enoughness and the looking at that and saying, if there's more out there, which, there's always going to be opportunities, will I still be able to jump in front of that panel and be like, I love my job, So, and what's the goal? Is it a new opportunity, all the things that come with new opportunities, or is it just being able to say I'm in the 20% that loves what I do every day?
Yeah. I love Simon Sinek. That's his why. I think this theme of purpose and meaning is what, I think where we started this conversation. When you're looking for a job and you're in transition, you get focused on paying the bills, like not having your family. Sometimes you don't want your children to know that you're not working right at this time, or, concerns about what the external world says, what am I going to put on my LinkedIn profile? And so you get caught up in that, and it's really hard to shift to, I have this opportunity to think about, what is my why? Where is my place? And you may not have choices. So you may have to do something temporarily, or start thinking about a job to pay the bills, but you still can take this opportunity. Bite size, whatever you can do, because purpose and meaning is going to help you get to that next step. And sometimes, if you can't afford a career coach, because that's, I think, what they do a lot of helping you with, or having a trusted advisor to start asking questions about, bringing, what is my contribution? Where is this place where I'm sort of firing on all cylinders, sort of getting that information? Yeah. I would say, along the same theme of purpose and meaning, and is the book that you recommended to me, Ernie, in one of our conversations. I think it was this year. Strength to strength.
Yep.
Yeah. Finding happiness in the second half of life, which at first, when Ernie said this to me, I was like, excuse me, I'm not in the second half of my life. I'm not sure who's in the second half of their life. But so when I got over that and looked at the book, and so Arthur Brooks is he's a columnist for The Atlantic. I think he used to do a lot of writing, and then sort of got into this whole happiness journey, right? And did a lot of research, and so it's very evidence based. So
just a quick nugget. David Brooks, I believe, is The Atlantic. Arthur Brooks is the other guy, right?
No, Arthur Brooks is The Atlantic. David Brooks is the New York Times.
Oh, you're right. My bad. Yep, you're right.
I like them both.
Yep.
Highly recommend.
And Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks.
Well, Mel Brooks, and then Albert Brooks. Albert Brooks wrote a couple of books too that are pretty funny. So I think we should just take a weekend and just go through all the Brooks, unrelated family members.
Are any of them brothers? Like Brooks brothers?
Father son.
Mellon Albert,
Albert.
right? And then David Brooks and Arthur Brooks, I don't believe any relation.
No,
and David Brooks, I think, is a little more of a conservative flair.
He did. I think he started out as a conservative writer, but just did this happiness research, where David Brooks probably has a more liberal bent. But David Brooks has a great article on, it's about not the meaning of life, but it's about, do you want a resume?
Yeah.
Do you want a versus like, kind of, what do you want this legacy behind? And so that's a great, it's a long article. That's great. I highly recommend that to people. But Arthur Brooks, this strength to strength, but strength by strength.
From strength to strength.
Yeah, from strength to strength. And similarly, getting off that treadmill, sort of, it's not about dumping your worldly possessions. But I think, again, it's about and not paying no attention to this treadmill and this place of, I need to be successful, but it's shifting your awareness. And I think wherever you are on the, if you're towards the summit, at the summit, post summit, but sort of bringing your awareness to this place of, okay, I'm not where I was before. I may have been an up and comer. I may have been, and especially if you're job searching and you're thinking, oh, well, why are they going to hire me? I'm 50 something in this place in my career, and someone else is 40 something. We have a similar credentials, background, work there, and that person's going to be cheaper, faster, younger. I'm the older model. But you need to bring your seasoned experience. So you need to be able to say, well, I'm not in that place of I'm reinventing or inventing something new. Maybe you are, but maybe I'm in a different place. What are the gifts? What is my place of contribution? What is the wisdom that I can bring today? Which what that is, right? You would be able to say, like, oh yeah, 10 years ago, I would have freaked out at that. Now I bring this place of grace and problem solving and forward thinking. But how do you get to that place of not competing, or this sort of addiction to success, which I think he brings a lot of stories about that.
There were some great examples in there about well-known folks like Darwin and some composers who they had their big claim to fame, what they contributed to the world, and then they kept chasing that. It was almost like a high of, well, now I need to top that. But look at Tom Brady. Like, how many times has he retired and come back? And this is a guy who can do anything he wants after football, but just loves that thrill of playing football, winning, and that's his thing.
That's where he identifies success.
Right. I am this. Right. And you're not going to be the whiz kid forever. Right. And one of the things they got into the way kind of your older brain works, and you get better at taking experiences from the different things you've done in life and tying them together. So you can be more of that sage, that wisdom. Guide. You have more wisdom that you're bringing to bear, and that's what is valuable. And he had this anecdote where he was out in Silicon Valley talking to a bunch of startup leaders, and he said, "Where are your old people?" And they said, "What, you mean people over 30?" And he was not happy about that. But you folks that have been out there and done that and have a little gray in their beards still have some things to share. So it's a great book. The beginning of it is a little depressing because it talks about how you start to lose your edge a little bit as you get older. But then there is a happy ending where it talks a little bit more about how there's certainly more value out there. I love what I do during the day, but I also enjoy this stuff. And so just like Allie was talking about, I love everything I'm doing. I think my wife wishes I would just pick one, but this is great.
Same.
So it's being able to share that stuff in a way that's a different format, right?
Yeah, and if you recall the opening to that book, the reason why he wrote that book was because he was sitting on an airplane listening to someone who was so famous and so well known for not just for the one thing they did, but a really storied career, and was sort of lamenting, and depressed And he's like, oh my God, like if this guy's not even happy at the end of his life, like with everything that he's done and continues to do, and I want to shake this guy's hand and get his autograph before I get off the plane, but I can't but help but overhearing that he's so unhappy.
He's
and
like,
so
I wish I was dead.
Yeah.
For me, it begs the question, like what's going to satisfy us? You know, how high do we need to climb? What do we need to gather? How many accolades do we need? And for me, that says that it's only ever, for folks who are in that mindset, it's only ever about the external validation.
Well, and how they identify, right? If you identify as a professional football player and you don't do anything else, when you're done, you lose. You're losing an identity, right? And so if you don't have an array of other things, hobbies, activities, friends, family, whatever, that's going to be a tough transition.
That's right. And I was thinking about when you said 4,000 weeks, and I'm not good enough in math to do it that quickly. But one of the first things that I thought of was, I wonder how, as I'm taking vacation, which is why I'm so casual today, this sense of how much vacation is left on the table. I just saw a post on LinkedIn the other day about like, I use X percentage of my PTO time. It was a high percentage, but it was like they were looking for like validation that like, because most people don't. And I'm thinking like, if we take our vacation, if we have, as you were saying, Ernie, hobbies and activities and things that bring us joy, in addition to the roles and the identities that we have professionally, one, if the identity professionally goes away, especially, without our consent, we have to be able to draw on our other roles, identities, interests, passions in the interim until we find the next opportunity, so that's one thing. But also enjoying the time that we have, because going back to the 4,000 weeks, in my head I was like, oh, I wonder how many vacation weeks we're spending of that 4,000 versus how many working weeks we're spending.
And how many people are on vacations thinking, ooh, I should use this time wisely and I should read such and such book, because we've been conditioned to think of our time like billable hours, and I've got to make it as productive as possible versus just, hey, how about if you just waste some time and enjoy that? Or read something that you really enjoy versus something that you think you should do. I do that sometimes. I'm like, oh, I should probably read one business book and one fun book. And why? Right? Just, it's your time. Like, do whatever you want with it, right?
And to be clear, I'm on vacation, but this felt like a fun thing to hop on this morning. I wasn't considering this work at all. And if it were, I would have probably said in advance, guys, I can't do it that week. I'm on vacation. I have pretty good boundaries around that, because I value all of the other, because working a lot of jobs and working a lot of hours, I really do try to make sure that there's a pretty big percentage of time set aside for me, for my family, for my pleasure and leadership development readings and all of those things that bring me joy, outside of what I have to do. Even if I enjoy it, it is still work.
Love it. So we talked about books a little bit. We also talked about podcasts. If there are any podcasters out there other than Jussel, which everybody should be listening to,
ranks number one.
Start with Jussel. But do you have anyone that you're listening to on a regular basis or planning to in 2023?
So I love Adam Grant. I don't know. He's again columnist. I think he's an organizational psychologist. But I actually started following him on Instagram before I hit the podcast, because so we were talking about sort of information and how, like, you don't always have time to read, and you don't always have time to. So I like snackable nuggets. And so again, I use Get Abstract, which is the subscription. You can kind of, and Get Abstract is even so great because there's podcasts and TED Talks on there. So you get
cool
summary versions of things. Not that I think you need to clip note everything in your life, but so I love Instagram. He always has sort of quotes and things on Instagram that are about, like, it might be about the 4-day work week. It might be about resilience. It might be, it's sort of, I'm like, oh yes, again, place of alignment. Yes. Like, does that resonate with you? So he has these podcasts. He has two. One's called Rethinking, and it's with more people you know. And then the other is about work and life, and I think it's called Work Life. It's called Work Life, and I think the tagline is like making work not suck.
I love it.
Right? Yeah. So, and so the topics are right? It could be how to pitch a good idea. So it is sort of that very like, but it's very relatable because they'll bring it into your sort of work and life scenarios. But it also might be, I think recently there was an interview with Dolly Parton about, because she wrote a book with James Patterson, but she's also somebody who like has so much to say about life and work, right?
Yeah.
So again, relatable, sort of, there's both that humor and that life, but then there's always these nuggets of something about that you can take. I think it's life and work to me. So I encourage, if you're a fan of Adam Grant, again, Snackable Nuggets on Instagram, but the podcast, I just enjoy. It's sort of like you're learning, but you're not thinking that it's not homework, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a podcast that it was him, Brene Brown,
Brene Brown,
and Simon Sinek.
Oh,
3 of them together, like, so it's like head explosion, right?
Oh my God,
so,
seriously.
So he brings on some interesting people. So pretty cool.
Oh, you should share that link, Ernie. I'd love to get that podcast, because I was going to say Brene Brown is a great one for sure.
Yep.
I would also add, I love Patrick Lencioni. I love his leadership books. I'm a big fan of his books.
Does he have a podcast too?
He does, At the Table. I mean, his group is called the Table Group.
Right.
So you just have to Google Lencioni podcasts, and you'll find them. And his most one that I recently listened to was on his new book, Working Genius, which I also really enjoyed and loved the concept. And again, that's like, the basis of Working Genius is really about everyone brings different strength. It's like anything. It's strength finders. It's Enneagram. It's all of those personality assessments. His is now, his version of it in Working Genius is basically give people strengths. It's like a strengths-based perspective. Everybody comes with different strengths. We're really good at certain things. Some are visionaries. Some are operationalizers. Everyone's got different things, and you need to know what those are for yourself and for the people on your team and for your colleagues, the people that you lead, everyone around you, so that they can each take the role that best fits with their working genius, with their type in terms of style, but also with what we're all good at doing. And then you have happier people, you have more productive people, and you have better business outcomes.
Love it. Yeah. I haven't read his stuff in a while. I think the last one I read was The Advantage. And that's probably 6 years or so old. So
I found that you could find some of the old ones. A few months ago, it was recommended the what is it called? The 5 Temptations of the CEO. Loved it. And I read it. I didn't read it. I listened to it on YouTube. I'm sure he wasn't thrilled that it was available that way. But it was literally like a 3-hour YouTube video, and I just literally listened to it like a podcast one night. I just sat and put in my earbuds and went about my business and listened to it all night long. And it took me one night to read. So his stuff is really easy like that, and really insightful, especially for leaders and people working with teams.
Well, we are, believe it or not, at time. So we do need to wrap it up and say farewell for now. Loved having you both on. Such a great conversation, and I hope folks listening found this insightful and helpful. Any parting thoughts as we sign off here?
I think that when it comes to we talked about a lot, but really the main topic of this particular podcast episode is about what are you reading, what are you listening to, and I think that we tend to, for me anyway, I love reading and listening, and I don't do it nearly as much as I want to, but when I do, it's like, wow, why haven't I been doing this all along? And I think that I would just offer some sort of advice for myself. Like, don't make it a big production. Just pick up the book and start reading. And if you get inspired, you're going to keep reading. And if not, put it down and pick up the next one. And then so I think just always have something on your nightstand, in your briefcase, and on your earbuds.
Yeah.
Multi formats. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I would second that. I think that it's not meant to be work. I think that when you find the thing that is, where it leads you to a place of calm, inspiration, you will do your thinking. You will do your, hey, I should try that at work. Hey, I should really rejigger my resume and change it up that way. But you need to get to that place. So allow yourself that. What is that Parks and Recreation that treat yourself? Like take the day to make it your what am I going to do with this time? I have a day off. I have a week's vacation. I have this gift. Whether it's for me, it's paint by numbers. I think I've shared with you guys. I love my paint by numbers. I put, and that's when I do a lot of listening or watching something in the background, but take the time to just find a place where you're going to be able to tune out and tune in.
That's great.
Love
tune
that.
out, tune in. Love You should trademark that. Awesome. Well, thank you both. Have a great rest of the day. Allie, enjoy your sunny vacation. And thank you so much for taking time out to hang out with us.
Thanks for having me. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.